Hello everybody and welcome to Forever Motorsports as we've just finished the Emilia-Romagna Grand Prix in Italy and a very dramatic finish right at the end there for Lando Norris and Max Verstappen, but Max Verstappen comes out on top. I think if there were a couple more laps, Lando Norris might have been able to do something. It was really exciting in those last 10 laps, seeing those gaps fall as Lando Norris was catching up to the Red Bull driver right at the top there. Just shows McLaren are making some huge inroads on that Red Bull car. But eventually Max Verstappen, the driver champion, does manage to win the race here in Imola, and he finishes off in first for the Red Bull team with Lando Norris in second, as I said, just behind him in the McLaren, and Ferrari's Charles Leclerc in their home race finishes off in third to make our podium positions final. Then going through the rest of it, Piastri finished off in fourth position. He had quite a lot of fighting with Carlos Sainz near the beginning of the race. He had quite a decent pit stop strategy which managed to jump him ahead when he started in fifth. Unfortunately, he could not make any inroads on Charles Leclerc ahead of him, so he finished off in fourth position. Sainz, though, in fifth position. The two Mercedes, Hamilton and Russell, in sixth and seventh, with George Russell getting the fastest lap of the day in seventh, as I say, so an extra point for Mercedes for them. Perez, though, starting in 11th, managed to get up into eighth position, could not get any higher than that. There were no safety cars, no real incidents out on tracks, and nothing to help him out in terms of that chance and in terms of trying to get him further up the grid for points. So he finishes in eighth position. Lance Stroll in ninth for Aston Martin. Good points haul for them in terms of how terribly they were looking going into this Grand Prix, so not too bad for him. And Yuki Tsunoda finishes off our point scorers in 10th position for VCARB. Then at the bottom of the grid, Albon could not finish the race. He had to retire the car after the very early pit stop in the race, where unfortunately they messed up a little bit in the pit stop, let him out on a slightly loose tire, and resulted in him going around the track very, very slowly. He lost all the time in the world, and he got a penalty as a result of it. And so his race was pretty much all but over right near the beginning of the race as well. So he finished off in 20th without finishing the race. Alonso had a really frustrating day after starting in the pits. He finished off in 19th as well. Bottas 18th, Sargent in 17th, Gasly 16th, Zhou Guanyu in 15th, Ocon in 14th, Ricciardo 13th, and the two Haases of Kevin Magnussen and Nico Hülkenberg in 12th and 11th place respectively. Again, Imola always not really known for too much overtaking in terms of genuine overtakes. There's only one real place you can make an overtake, which is just off that DRS zone. And the only way you make that overtake stick properly is when you've got new tires versus old tires. And that's only where we saw the proper overtakes. Outside of that, we didn't really see too much fighting. So most of the Grand Prix, unfortunately, not too much to look at in terms of proper fighting, but timing going into it. And the reason why we were so keen to see what happened right at the end there between Lando Norris and Max Verstappen was because Max Verstappen was losing tires to Lando Norris behind him, and he already had black and white flags behind his name, which meant that he cannot take any risks, because if he goes over any lines and does anything badly, he'll lose time in terms of a penalty. And if he got a penalty, Lando Norris would have won the race. As I say, finishing right at the end, they're only 0.7 seconds behind Max Verstappen did Lando Norris. So it was right down to the wire. If there were a couple more laps, Lando Norris would have been within DRS range of him, and he could have taken him. But unfortunately for Lando Norris, not to be. He could not make it 2 wins in a row, but I think he can be grateful for finishing so close in second. Max Verstappen, though, takes another win for his cabinet, and gets Red Bull a little bit further ahead after Max has to make up for Sergio Perez's lost points down in 8th position. So Drivers' Championship starting to really heat up in terms of that second place position between Sergio Perez, Lando Norris, and Charles Leclerc. They're really close together. It's great to see that. Max Verstappen still leading fairly comfortably at this point in time. The Constructors' Championship started to look a lot more interesting, though, as well, because McLaren really started to make some big inroads on Red Bull, as well as Ferrari, quietly just pattering along there, and Mercedes still not really in the conversation of the top 3 best teams, but started to try and solidify themselves a little bit towards the 4th place sort of positions. Today it was 5th, 6th and 7th, but they weren't looking too terrible. But nonetheless, we do see Ferrari, Red Bull, and McLaren starting to create a 3-way race for the Constructors' Championship, and McLaren are just improving every week. And I think today's definitely showed us that Lando Norris can keep up to Max Verstappen without any sort of safety cars or anything like that happening, and strategy-wise. So next week in Monaco, that's going to be a very interesting one. So be sure to subscribe to the channel, like the video, and join us for the Monaco Grand Prix next week, because I think that is going to be a great show of character between Lando Norris, even Charles Leclerc as well. Of course, he's be at home in Monaco, and Max Verstappen in those 3 cars. There should be a hell of a good qualifying and a good race as well to watch in terms of point scoring for that. So it's all getting interesting in Formula One, and you've been watching myself, Mark, on Forever Motorsports for this review of the Imola Grand Prix. And I look forward to seeing you guys again soon in the next one. But for now, goodbye.